Hello BookTube, today I'm bringing you a slightly belated June wrap-up. Yeah. It's been a strange month, June. It feels like it's been really long. So some of these books I don't have the best recollection of, but gonna try. You might have noticed as well, actually, just a side note, that I've not been posting as much. I've basically decided I'm not going to put pressure on myself to post so many videos a week or blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to post when I have time or, you know, whenever, I'm afraid. Because the fact is, you know, on my days off I generally try and do writing, and if I sort of film as well, and I have to wait till the house is empty to film, so it kind of just takes up a large portion of the day that I should be writing, so I'm trying to focus on my writing instead of filming. I apologise, I will still be making videos, they'll just be quite intermittent, maybe every 2 weeks. I'm sorry. The first book I read in June was Enduring Love by Ian McEwan. I've already reviewed this, I will link it down below. The review does have spoilers in it, I'm afraid. I didn't feel like I could express my opinion of this book without putting spoilers in. So, yes, just a warning. It was okay. Basically, this is about a group of men in a park when a hot air balloon tries to fly away with people in it, and all the men run to the rescue. Joe and Parry meet from this incident, and Parry gets a bit obsessed with Joe, shall we say. I didn't really like it. I found the ending quite disappointing. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, I'm afraid. Next, I read Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. This is my first Rainbow Rowell, and I loved it. I really loved it. I wanted something a bit lighter after reading a book that I didn't really enjoy, so I picked this up, even though it was way down in my to-be-read list. I'm sorry. And I loved it, really did. I think I really am going to read more of Rainbow Rowell because I loved the way that, even though it's written for young adults, it's not written in a patronising way at all. And I think a lot of young adult novels are written in a way that is almost, it's not patronising, but it's simplistic. And this wasn't at all. It was written as it would have been for adults, and I really liked that. This is basically about a unlikely love story between Eleanor and Park, who go to school together. And it's got a lot of social issues in it as well. It's sort of their love for each other, their relationship, but in that there's sort of issues going on. Eleanor's got issues at home with her stepfather. It was really lovely, really sweet. The only thing I did have an issue with was the fact that I felt it was emphasised that Eleanor wasn't pretty, and that Park didn't necessarily think she was pretty. Even though he loved her, he didn't find her attractive, almost. Do you know what I mean? I felt like everybody's beautiful, and I really didn't feel like it was necessary to keep emphasising that she wasn't pretty, or that, you know, she was lucky to have Park, because everybody's beautiful, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I felt like Park should have thought she was beautiful. And obviously he did, but there was just a few bits in it where she was sort of saying about his appearance, and he was like, you're fine, and sort of just glossing it over, and he should have been like, you're amazing, like, you're beautiful, blah, 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 even if she's not stereotypically pretty. That's how I felt anyway. So, yeah, but I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be reading more Rainbow Rowell. I would really recommend it. I read this first because I've been told, sort of, just reading around, that this is the one to start with. I don't know if it was her first one, I don't have a clue, but I was told this one's the one to start with, so yeah, read that first. Then I read, this is going to be a difficult one to talk about, Virginia Woolf's Orlando. Now this was my first Virginia Woolf, and I knew before I picked it up that it was a bad one to start with. I just had a feeling, you know, it's not the most well known, blah 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 blah. And I was right, it wasn't the right one to start with. I enjoyed it, but I do kind of regret starting on this one, so I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Virginia Woolf herself said about this book that it was like a writer's holiday. It was like her splurge of just writing silly, fun stuff. And for that reason, it's not her best work, I don't think. I haven't read the others, but it totally did just feel like a writer's holiday. It was something she wrote for herself, I think, very much. It's like a mock autobiography about Orlando. I can't remember his name. He's some lord. I don't know if he was a real person. And it spans, I didn't realise till the end, that it spans over hundreds of years. He starts in like the 18 something and ends in like 1920. So yeah, didn't realise that until the end, and then I thought, oh yeah. So yes, he starts as a male lord, and it follows his life, and then suddenly he turns into a woman, and lives his life as a woman for the rest of his time, and sort of alternates between women and man. It's fun. It's got a few really good quotes in there, and it was a bit heavy going, but it was all right. It was fun. I'm definitely going to read more of her. I've already bought more of her, which I'm hoping I'll enjoy a bit better. But I enjoyed this. There was bits of it that I was like, yes, that's a really good quote, and I like books that like that, even if you just write down the quotes. I didn't read it in the fastest amount of time, so I didn't overly enjoy it, but it was strange, it was fun, it was fantastical, and just very odd. I think it was, odd indeed. Then I read Blankets by Craig Thompson, and this is a beast of a graphic novel. It's only the second graphic novel I've really read, and I have to say I don't know if I'm a huge fan of them. Like, they're easy and they're fun and they're nice to just flick through, pretty pictures and stuff. But I kind of feel a bit, at the end of both of the ones I've read, I felt a bit lacking. Like, this was really good, but in the end I kind of felt like it was a bit of a circle that didn't go anywhere. I don't know. But I enjoyed it anyway. This is basically about Craig Thompson's first love. The man in the bookshop actually told me when I bought it that Craig Thompson's family haven't spoken to him since this came out, which I think is a bit harsh. I mean, there is stuff about his family in there, but nothing that I think would warrant not talking to him anymore. So, there you go. I've actually bookmarked a picture that I thought was particularly good, because there is some really gorgeous drawings in here. It's quite airy-fairy, because obviously it's about first love, but look at those. There's a few like that. So yeah, it's just about him going to stay with this girl that he fell in love with, and their sort of summer together. That's all I have to say about it, really. To be honest, that's all there is to it. I would recommend it. It's really thick, as I say. Look at it. It's huge. It took me probably about 2 hours to get through, so even though it looks daunting, it's really not, because it's a graphic novel, obviously. So that's that. And then I read Beautiful Darkness by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. I read Beautiful Creatures about a year ago, couldn't remember much about it. Watched the film to refresh my memory before I bought this. I will give you an overview of what the first book is about. It's basically about Lena and, what's his name? Lena and Ethan. Lena is a caster, which is a sort of witch, and Ethan is a mortal, although he seems to have some sort of connection with Lena, so we don't know whether he's got something or he's just a plain mortal, blah, 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 blah. Lena's, in the first book, it is coming up to her 16th birthday, which is when she has to decide whether she's dark or white. However, in Lena's family, there is a curse on the females that says that their sort of fate is chosen for them. So the first book is sort of leading up to her 16th birthday, and is she going to be good, is she going to be bad? And stuff happens out of that. This one I enjoyed a lot more than the first one, actually. The first one I found quite mediocre. It wasn't the easiest read, and I was really thinking it would be, but it took me quite a while to get through. I was quite slow with it. But this one was much better. It was much less about the love story between Ethan and Lena, which I liked. And I thought was a bit rarer, actually, because they sort of branch off a bit more in this book, which is good to see. I think not enough books do that, it's like love, 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 and sometimes that's a bit much. So in this book, there wasn't so much of the love story, which I enjoyed. There was more of an adventure, so it kept me reading, and I read it really quickly. And there was other stuff in this book was introduced. There was vampires, which were called incubuses, I think. I'm pretty sure they were called incubuses. And it was all a bit of a different take on something that's been done so many times. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it a lot more than the first one. I would say if you didn't really like the first one, definitely give this one a go, because it was a lot better. And then I read Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day. Now, I've already read Never Let Me Go by this author, and I struggled to enjoy it, to be honest. I loved the concept, and I've since watched the film and I really enjoyed that, but the book I found was quite simplistically written. I have to say the copy I had did have really large text, which I find actually puts me off reading a book, because I just feel like it's a bit simplistic, even if it's not. So I don't know whether that was why. I know a lot of people love that book. I personally struggled with it, so I was a bit loath to pick this one up, but I've heard a lot of people saying that it's really good, and it also didn't sound like my cup of tea, but I picked it up anyway because it won the Man Booker Prize, and it's just, everybody says it's amazing, so I did, and got a gorgeous edition of it. This is the Faber and Faber edition that I found in a charity shop. It's really pretty, really simplistic, and just nice. And I really, really enjoyed this book, actually. It's about Stevens, a butler. He's working in a house. It's 1956, and he's working in the house of Lord Darlington, who has now passed away, and an American has taken over the house. And Lord Darlington, I spoke to my boyfriend about this, was a real figure in history, I believe, and the events that happen in this, because there's quite a lot of political stuff going on in the house when Stevens is the butler. A lot of the events that happen and the discussions that go on are apparently real things, which I didn't know about. So, that was interesting, bit educational, and I really enjoyed it. It's basically just about his life in the house, and he's sort of looking back on what happened when Lord Darlington was in charge, because the American man has given him leave. It's his first sort of holiday ever, I think, and Stevens is a really interesting character. It's really interesting getting to know him. He's not actually a very nice person. Like, through his interactions with other staff members and things like that, you realise that he's so dedicated to being a good butler that he almost forgets to be a good person. And that's a really fascinating way that it was built up, because at first, he's lovely, he's nice, and slowly little bits start niggling at you, and it's about halfway through you think, actually, I really don't like him. But at the same time, you do like him, because you realise that he just wants to be good at his job. He is so determined to be good at his job that he just sacrifices himself, basically. And it's just really, really interesting little read. If you liked Downton Abbey, for example, you will love this. Personally, I thought I wasn't going to like it, because I find that kind of thing quite boring, but I really liked the sort of twist in the character of Stevens. He was very complex, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed reading his story. So yes, I would recommend that one. And lastly, I read Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence. Now, this is my third D.H. Lawrence books. I've also read Lady Chatterley's Lover and The Rainbow. I didn't realise, actually, when I picked this up, that this was a sequel of sorts to The Rainbow. Don't let that put you off. You don't need to read The Rainbow before you read this, but it is sort of the same characters, which I didn't even realise. I was reading it and I was like, I'm sure I recognise that name, and it wasn't until I looked it up that I was like, oh, right, because I can't remember anything about The Rainbow, and I still got this, so yeah, you don't need to read that first. The trouble for me with D.H. Lawrence, I really like him, and he's got such lovely ideals and lovely use of language, but he's pretty wordy and heavy-going, and this took me a long time, and it's not that thick. It took me over a week. It's the first book in a very long time that's taken me over a week to read. Sorry if I'm out of breath. I just had to run to the kitchen to get my potatoes out. They were burning. So yeah, this was pretty heavy-going. A lot of people, I sort of looked up the reviews after I finished this, and a lot of people said, rubbish, absolutely boring. And I don't think you can say that. I think this is a really interesting, good and well-written and beautiful piece of work. There's some quotes, again, as I said with Orlando, there were some quotes in this that were just groundbreakingly beautiful, but it's quite wordy, it's quite heavy, not a lot really happens, it's more of a statement. It's a typical classic in my eyes. It's a wordy, long-winded thing, but as much as I hate classics that are wordy and long-winded, I enjoyed this. Wouldn't read it again necessarily. It was a bit of a chore in the end, but it's still worth a go, and especially if you like classics anyway, I'd definitely say give it a go, because D.H. Lawrence, he has got a gorgeous grasp on the English language. This follows Ursula and Gudrun Brangwen and their relationships between Rupert and Gerald, who are best friends. They basically both fall in love with each consecutively, and it follows the problems that arise from those relationships and the problems that don't arise from those relationships. So it follows them good and bad. This book is actually, it's kind of a lot to do with the fact that nature and versus humans as well as love. So a lot of the times in this book, nature sort of takes control of the situation, and it sort of is a statement, I think, about how, nature is always going to be in control, even though we think we are. And it's also a statement about love, I think, and about how it's not all it's cracked up to be, really. A lot of the time in this book, even when things are going good with the relationships, it's a lot of sort of love-hate and how closely those things are interlinked. They very much mingle together in this book, and one minute they're sort of in love and the next minute they're hitting each other, and it's like, what? But, I think that is quite realistic of relationships. They're very flitty and all over the place, especially when you're younger and just meeting each other and just getting to know each other. It is a very precarious situation, and you are sort of volatile and emotional. I don't know, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's for everyone, but if you like classics, as I say, give it a go. If you like really pretty quotes in books, give it a go. I think it's worth probably taking your time with this one. I read it sort of straight out, but I don't know whether it would be worth dipping in and out of. It's the kind of book that you can do that with, I think, because it's not got a sort of ongoing plot, as it were. It's sort of more like little incidences in their lives and their relationships. So I think, yeah, probably a better way to read it would be to dip in and out occasionally. So yes, that was my reading month of June. I read quite a lot actually, but as I say, it's a weird month. I sort of felt like it went on forever and just strange. And I also was in a bit of a reading slump, so that didn't help things. But I definitely come out of that now, and I'm like, give me the books. So yeah, hope you had a good reading month in June. Let me know what you read down below, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.